said earlier that this bill has kind of been around for a number of years, and the reason it's been around for a number of years is because it's a bad bill. It's a controversial bill, as you well know, and it will prevent 0 cases of voter impersonation. That's what this is all about, voter impersonation, where one person goes in and represents himself to be somebody else and manages to basically pass through all the filters at a polling place. And that voter ID clerk asks them for their name, their address, their date of birth, and then by state law asks them for if they have some form of identification, although they're not required to present it, most voters do. 2 years ago in this committee, then Representative King was asked how many examples of voter impersonation the bill would have prevented were at law. He, at that time, said he could not cite one single example, not one single example. He and the other supporters of this bill have now had 2 years since then to document cases of voter impersonation. Again, they stand before you today, as they did a few minutes ago, and they cite not one single example. Senate Bill 2 indicates a naive lack of understanding of how the voting process actually works on election day in voting precincts. Provisional ballots for those lacking acceptable voter IDs will greatly slow down the voting process and cost state and local government and individuals tens of millions of dollars to hire additional poll workers, train them adequately, provide needed provisional ballot materials, and provide up to 250,000 required voter IDs. One extrapolated cost estimate ranges from $28 to $82 million. Now, where did I come up with that figure? Somebody heard the extrapolated figure earlier? Other states have been mentioned. The state of Minnesota last year, the legislature put on the ballot a constitutional amendment for voter ID. And it just so happened that a well-respected former Republican governor and a well-respected former Democratic governor joined forces. When the bill was first put on the ballot, 80% of Minnesota voters favored it. By the time it was voted on in early November last year, support was falling so fast that it's amazing that anybody still hadn't figured out that it was a bad bill, it was bad for voters. It went down to a resounding defeat. In Minnesota, it was estimated that the cost there, of course they've got more voters, would have been between $52 and $150 million. That's cost to state government, cost to local government, it cost to individuals who have to go do some things that they don't have to do today. Senate Bill 2 will not prevent any existing election problems. Several senators have already asked questions. Really, it's absentee ballot and other voter issues. It has nothing to do with the intent of this bill. As many as 250,000 Arkansans could be prevented from voting. That includes seniors, active duty military, African Americans, college students, Latinos, and many others. That's an estimate of roughly how many voting age Arkansans lack voter IDs that are required by Senate Bill 2, and that's an estimate of 11% nationally. Which group of citizens will be next to have their right to vote threatened or taken away by yet another legislative obstacle erected between them and their ballot? This bill has nothing to do with voters impersonating other voters and casting ineligible votes. It has everything to do with preventing large numbers of certain Arkansans from being able to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Senate Bill 2 is an anti-voter bill. I would ask the sponsor to pull down this controversial bill, which would disenfranchise close to 250,000 potential Arkansas voters, would cost Arkansas taxpayers untold millions of dollars to implement, and prevent 0 voter impersonation votes. I want to add one more thing. The chairman asked earlier about getting an ID if you don't have one. You know, I live in a pretty nice area of Little Rock. I've got a copy machine in my home office. I've got a vehicle. You know, I can pretty much go do what I need to do. I can get IDs for both my elderly parents if I need to. But you know, there are a lot of people around the state who don't have the advantages that I and probably most of you on this committee have. They don't have a copier at home. Some of them don't have cars. Some of them live 40 miles away from the county seat in a rural county. And if that's the only place that issues a voter ID, you know, it's not as easy as it is for me or for you to just pick up and go get this newly required document so that they can for eligible